Israel's military has admitted that Palestinian civilians have been killed at aid distribution sites in the Gaza Strip by what it called inaccurate and uncalculated artillery fire. The IDF said it had issued new instructions to its soldiers following what it said in a statement were lessons learned. The acknowledgement comes after Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry said the Israeli military killed at least 20 people at a distribution centre on Monday. The UN estimates that more than 400 Palestinians have been killed since May as they sought aid at sites run by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Meanwhile, efforts to achieve a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas appear to be increasing. Israeli officials are on their way to Washington for talks on Gaza after US President Donald Trump called for a new push to end fighting by next week.
After 20 months of war and misery in Gaza, Donald Trump has decided now is the time for peace.
I think it's close. I just spoke with some of the people involved. We think within the next week we're going to get a ceasefire.
Trump's been pushing that message on his social media platform. Buoyed by the US bombing campaign in Iran and ceasefire there, Gaza is now the focus, with Israel's leader seemingly on the same page.
I want to inform you that many opportunities have now opened up following this victory.
Trump's aim to move beyond previous temporary peace deals to something more permanent. A possible US-Israeli plan has been outlined by the Israeli newspaper Israel Hayom, though some of the points are likely to be contentious. According to the report, which Netanyahu's office contests, Israel says it would end its military action in return for the release of all hostages in Gaza, the exile of Hamas leaders, the running of Gaza by 4 Arab states, likely to include Egypt and the UAE, and the expansion of the Abraham Accords. The original Abraham Accords, signed during Trump's first term in office, normalised relations between Israel and the UAE and Bahrain. An expansion would bring in more Arab countries.
We will welcome Syria, as I said, to the peace and normalization circle in the Middle East as much as we will welcome the Saudis to join.
Trump may well feel Netanyahu owes him after America's involvement in Iran. The US president has also repeatedly called for Netanyahu's corruption trial to be halted so he can focus on a deal with Gaza, as Trump looks to cement his status as the ultimate peacemaker in the Middle East.
Let's explore this with Oliver McTernan, who's a founder and co-director of Forward Thinking. That's a charitable organisation addressing issues related to the Middle East. He spent more than 2 decades working in conflict resolution in the region. Welcome to DW. We heard that the US president there saying that he thinks peace is close. What do you think?
If only. It would be a great thing to see happen, because I think we've seen far too much suffering, and that endless nightmare for the 2.3 million people in Gaza, as well as the hostages and their families. So let's hope. But I think what is being talked about now is very unlikely to bring a ceasefire and subsequently peace.
OK, so in order to achieve peace, the conventional thinking is that there must be compromise. Each side must give something up. What do you see Israel, or indeed Hamas, giving up in order to achieve this much sought-after peace?
Well, I think the first step is a ceasefire. And unless we get a ceasefire immediately, and Hamas will have to give up the remaining hostages to achieve that. But also, I think Israel will have to withdraw for its military from the Gaza Strip. Now, we had that in January. It lasted 2 months. People abided by it. Then when Netanyahu decided to break it, Trump went along with them. That was unfortunate. So I think there's a deficit of trust now, and trust will have to be built up in light of this. Peace, I think, will only come when Israel has the courage to give up occupation, not just of Gaza, but of all the occupied Palestinian territories as recognized by the international community. Now, once that is given up, Palestinians are given the agency to elect their own government, to have their own defense force, no militias, but a defense force, and Israel recognizing them as partners and equals. Then I think that's when we will get true peace. We won't get it piecemeal, an Oslo 3 or an Oslo 4. Oslo, I think, as proven, was a disaster. What's needed now is decisive action. And I hope Donald Trump will see that and will force Netanyahu to act decisively in this way.
Except that, we, as you say, you can't see it happening. And as you laid it out there, the chances of it happening must be diminishing. Even though Donald Trump says he wants it done by this weekend, Donald Trump can be seen to have influence over Israel, but also has backed Israel in its, as you say, when it broke this peace down. The various moving parts of this seem too complicated and too partial for this mediator, the United States president, to actually make this happen.
Well, I think you rightly said Donald Trump has enormous power over Israel. Joe Biden set the wrong mood when he said there are no red lines between the United States and Israel. In other words, he gave them a certain green light to behave in the way that they saw fit without having to think about what may be the consequences. And as we see, the rule-based order that grew out of World War II, that rulebook or rule-based order, we've seen just being totally ignored over the past 20 months. So I think what we've got to try and do now is to return to the rule-based order. And I think that will only be if Trump has the courage to say, look, we don't want patches that will, or papering over cracks that will show themselves again in the future and return to the cycle of violence. The only way we can break this cycle of violence once and for all is to have, as I say, end of occupation, establishment of a Palestinian state with agency. All of these plans of bringing Arab states in to govern Gaza, they'll go nowhere. They lack an understanding of the Gazan people.
That was actually, that was my point. My next question, actually, your thoughts on the notion of Gaza being run by these 4 Arab states. Do you see that as a non-starter?
It's a non-starter. The Gazan people are a very resilient people. Even now, they are in many different ways administering life under intolerable circumstances. I think there are numerous competent people whom I know in Gaza who would be very capable of picking up the pieces and getting their society and the social fabric of the society back on track. But I think that should be done in coordination with Ramallah. We cannot see Gaza cut off. And I think the proposal as it is now is to see Gaza as some sort of separate entity cut off from the rest of the Palestinian occupied territories.
Thank you for your fascinating analysis. Oliver McTernan from Forward Thinking. Thank you so much.
Thank you.